Hello, everyone. We're going to get started. So, with that being said, my name is Alyssa Campista. I'm a peer financial coach with the UO Financial Wellness Center. I'm a senior and a second year coach, and I'm studying accounting. And here with me as well is Megan. Megan, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi again, y'all. My name's Megan. I'm also a senior and a peer financial coach. And yeah, like I said, we're so excited you're here. And if Gilbert wants to introduce himself too.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Dr. Gilbert Rogers, and I am the Assistant Director of Financial Wellness. And we have something special for you all. So take notes and be ready to learn.
So, with that being said, the UO Financial Wellness Program is presenting a planning financially for the post grad students. We're fostering a community of financially capable ducks at the University of Oregon. So, just a little bit about us. Our mission is to financially empower students with the knowledge needed to make sound financial decisions during and after college. And that's kind of what brought Megan and I here to this program and why we're doing what we do.
What we do over at the Financial Wellness Center is really focus on these big five areas of holistic financial wellness. So that includes earning, which we're kind of touching on a lot of these things because they're all super important for post grad work, but specifically earning, which is all about budgeting, spending, which is all about managing the inflow and outflow of your money, borrowing, student loans, understanding credit cards, which we'll talk a bit about today, as well as protecting, thinking about identity theft and fraud, and saving and investing strategies and ways to get started with that. So if you ever have any questions about any of this, we have a bunch of resources that you can come speak to us. And I think we're going to talk about ways that we can help you. Yeah. So all of these topics are what we're going to be talking about in on-demand financial education workshops. So if you have a club or you have a class that you're really looking for some specific or some you really think that y'all would benefit from some financial education, we can go ahead as peer financial counselors. We can go, coaches can come and help out your student organization or group. We also have peer financial coaching. So that's going to be virtual one-on-one coaching sessions. We have a bunch of awesome coaches who can talk to you about all those big five financial wellness topics. And we are still for this finals week, our appointments are available. You can speak to us, and then starting next term, we'll be starting. So we're going to take a break on one-on-one peer financial coaching for winter break, and then we're going to be going right back into it starting winter term. And we're also just working to build and establish partnerships across campus and offer financial wellness enrichment opportunities to students, knowing that it's such an amazing foundation that's going to really help you in your future.
So with that being said, we'll kind of jump into this topic. Just some quick facts for you all. 74% of students agree that they experience some general level of stress related to their personal finances. I know I do, so this is relevant to me and others as well. And additionally, 53% of students said that they would make a change if they could go through the process of taking out loans all over again. This is really important. I'm a senior. I'm starting to prepare for the post-grad, as are many of you. And just knowing that these snippets can help us learn from others. So with that being said, here's what you need to know. We're going to talk about budgeting basics, talking about credit 101, the importance of starting a retirement account ASAP, student loan repayment, and kind of dive into the cost of living and relocation. All of these are a critical part of the foundation to prepare for the post-grad life and what that all means and the cost of the post-grad life, if that makes sense. So that being said, Megan's going to jump right into the basics of budgeting.
Yeah, so we can't talk about money management or succeeding post-grad without talking about budgeting 101. So why is budgeting important, specifically for those of us who are looking to graduate from school and really jumpstart our financial life, which seems totally crazy for me already as a senior, but I know it's something that's on all of our radars. So it's important to understand where your money is coming from and where it's going. So something that I love to do, I actually like really love to do. It's a weird, fun thing that I do, but I have my bank account as an app on my phone, and I make sure that I'm going through and looking at where my money is going. So whether it's weekly or at least once a month, I'm making sure that I'm continuously checking that app to make sure I'm making wise decisions with my money, staying on my budget. So think about ways that you can just make where your money is coming from and where it's going a more easy and simplified piece of your life, and just really float in. If it's a budget, if it's an app on your phone, it's going to be easy to just pull that up and make sure that you're um, keeping track of all those things. And having a budget is going to be important to building good money habits. Like I mentioned, it really is the foundation. So if you're starting with a budget, you're going to be able to make changes. You're going to be able to afford things that are coming up. And speaking of affording things that come up, that's why saving is so important as well. As we're moving into the post-grad life, that comes with a lot of unknowns and a lot of unknowns that cost money. So emergencies happen, and if you're have a job interview, things like a new wardrobe might be something that you haven't budgeted for in the past, but is something that's going to be really important to do in the future. So we're going to go over that a bit because we think that it's a good example of you can go to the next slide. Yeah, we think it's a great example of how your budget can change as soon as you graduate, or why it's so important to have that money management foundation to be able to afford things like a professional wardrobe. So we suggest that you invest in one outfit for interview or hiring process. So make sure that you have that one really good blazer, or that one really good blazer and slacks that's your go-to, you feel comfortable in. I think it's important to recognize that, if you look good, you feel good, whatever feels like you, and it's going to give you the most confidence going into that job interview or going into that first just big professional position. And also be resourceful. So don't think that you have to go buy the newest, most expensive blazer to impress your professional sphere or the people that you're working with or interviewing with. Ask a family or a family member or a friend to borrow an outfit, and also check out really resourceful places like CMU has a sustainability center that has free clothes. Sales are always such an amazing place to go looking for things that you need, as well as like online sales. With everything going on right now, it's definitely more applicable to use those online sales and really be keeping track of that, as well as like thrift stores. We have in Eugene, especially, we even have so many thrift stores available, Goodwill, St. Vinny's. They always have a huge selection of things for a really great price. So be kind of resourceful and let yourself, be comfortable, but also remembering that it is important to make time and make a budget for that professional wardrobe as well.
So with that being said, we're going to look at Credit 101, crucial to the post-grad life. Credit is the measure of trust one party has in another party's ability to receive a resource now and pay for it at a designated point. So when it comes to credit, the first step is to check your credit report at www.annualcreditreport.com. You get up to 4 times a year for free. So if you haven't looked into credit yet and you're like, oh, this is something I need to look into, I definitely recommend checking this out first and then looking at your credit score. So there's 5 components to your credit score, and it's a 3-digit number as seen here. The most widely used one is the FICO credit score, which ranges from 300 to 850. And depending on your credit score, depends on can dictate your future expenses. So for example, in the future, I would like to get a new car. I would like to buy a house once I am in a position that I can. But in order to get there, I need to build my credit, because if I have a low credit, that influences like the rate at which you have to borrow money. So it's important to start building that now. And as you can see, there's 5 components. So your payment history, your amounts owed, your new credit, your length of credit history, and your credit mix. These percentages make up how important it is and how much it affects that credit score. So as we can see here, payment history is 35%. It's the most important aspect of your credit score, which just means that you need to pay on time. So if you pay your student loans on time, if you're paying your credit card on time, that's going to help build your credit score over time and get you from that fair to good to excellent range. And then when you're in that excellent range and you want to buy that new car or you want to get a mortgage for your first house ever, which is exciting but crazy, you're going to get a lower rate to borrow that money. So starting now just helps you save money in the future. And so to build credit, one of the primary ways that we can do that is through credit cards. Credit cards are known as revolving credit, which means that you have a predetermined limit and no fixed repayment terms. So you can just, if you spend and then you pay it back, it's like a revolving limit, if that makes sense. So the more you use and then the more you pay, the more it grows. And to build this credit, I recommend having a conversation about a secured credit card, becoming an authorized user. So a secured credit card means that you need to have collateral, if that makes sense. So if I want a secured credit card, I have to put $250 down toward that credit card company. They keep my $250 as collateral, or like just in case that I won't pay whatever I put on this credit card. That's like the damage is done. If you do a secured credit card, you put that money down, then you can use that to start building credit. And once you start building credit, then you can be eligible for non-secured credit cards, or like the ones that you don't have to put that collateral down to begin with. So that's one way to build credit. Another way is to become an authorized user. So for example, you could have a conversation with your parent or guardian like, hey, like I would like to build credit. You have to understand that when you become an authorized user on someone else's credit card, their credit score and credit history affects your credit score, and your actions and decisions with that card that you're an authorized user on affects their credit score. So it kind of goes hand in hand. So it's a really important conversation to have with a parent or guardian about becoming an authorized user, because that's a lot of risk for both people. It could be. And then once you have a secured credit card or become an authorized user on a credit card, like I said, it's crucial to pay on time. That's the most important aspect for a beginner credit user. And that over time will help you build a strong credit, which will influence how much you pay in the future for borrowing money for cars and a house and all those things that you can't save for, if that makes sense.
So another big part about thinking about post-grad is noticing that you might have to pay back your student loans. A lot of students, including myself, have taken out loans to go to school. So knowing that your grace period is ending 6 months after you graduate, and that means that payments are going to start, is a really, really important thing to keep in the back of your mind, even before we graduate. So it's important to know your balance and look at your repayment options. We're going to make sure that you want to visit studentaid.gov. It's going to give you everything that you need to know for paying off your federal student loans. It'll help you find your loan servicer, complete exit counseling, and you can estimate your monthly payments. So these are going to be crucial steps that you need to take before your grace period is over, before graduating, to make sure that once that 6 months is up and your first payment is ready, you know what you're expected to pay. You know approximately, hopefully, how long you're going to have to be paying off your loans, and you know how much you owe. So keeping all of that in mind is really important. And it's gonna, if you have a grip on your student loan repayments, you're gonna have a grip on your financial success in general. So it's something that paying off your student loans is something that you have to do, and it's gonna be for some people it might be a big part of that post-grad financial space. So keep that in mind as well.
Also, just going back to that credit, your student loans and your ability to pay these on time does impact your credit score. So while it's important to play your credit card, it's also crucial that you pay the student loans on time, because if you do miss a payment, that affects your credit score. And as we saw, that's a very significant part of your credit score. So just stressing the importance to start budgeting and saving money to pay off those student loans, because that in the end also will affect your ability to get a car loan to buy your first house. It all goes hand in hand.
Yeah, so another big thing to think about when you're moving into the professional world, you're getting your first job, you're thinking about planning for retirement. And you can do that as soon as possible. And you really want to take full advantage of your benefits. And I think Gilbert's going to talk a bit more about what are these things that your employer might be offering. What should you be looking for to ensure that you're going to be able to take advantage of things like compound interest, so which is all about making money on top of money. So making sure that the sooner you start putting money into a retirement account, the more that can compound and make you even more money. So things like that are super important to start thinking about, and to have conversations like come talk to a peer coach about, how do I sign up for a retirement account? Should I do it through my employer? Should I do it just personally? So things like that are questions that we can answer, and super important when we're thinking about graduating and we're thinking about taking those next steps. There's a lot of responsibility in that, as we all know. And one of those responsibilities is planning for your future. So making sure that you're prioritizing things like your retirement account are going to help you way past graduation for sure.
So speaking of graduation and jobs, a lot of students in Eugene are probably looking at relocating and maybe not spending the rest of the next 5 years in Eugene, which is completely normal. So when relocating for a job, it's important to understand the cost of living from city to city. So here's a really good resource to try and understand like what the cost of moving from Portland to San Francisco or Eugene to Kentucky, whatever it means. So we're just going to check out this. Okay, yeah, so this is a specific example. I currently live in Portland. Let's say I wanted to move to San Francisco, California post-grad. My salary, because I'm an accounting major, tends to be around starting like 65. So in Portland, 65 would be great, but if I wanted to move to San Francisco, I would need to make nearly 30,000 more to have these maintain my same standard of living. And this website kind of breaks it down by each expense in your life. So housing, a medium 2-bedroom apartment is 2,600, but in San Francisco, that's 41. So when you're looking at relocating, it's really important to understand the additional expenses that may go into that relocation, because if we aren't budgeting and planning for that, then that can end somewhat poorly. So for all of you soon to be postgraduates, if you're debating where you're going to live post-graduation and where you want to accept a job, I highly recommend using the cost of living calculator to understand those additional expenses. And so with that being said, Gilbert's going to talk about the compensation packages and looking at the post-grad life.
All right, so I'm going to talk just a little bit about a few other things to consider when making the decision of whether or not to relocate for a job, or whether to accept a position or entertain a position that's in a different area. So what Megan and Alyssa have done is they've kind of scratched the surface on some of these postgraduate considerations. Everything from learning to budget, which is something you're gonna have to do no matter where you are or what walk of life, but it is extremely important for you to set up your first budget if you've never completed one prior to graduating, because it can make a world of difference. But as I mentioned, Alyssa and Megan, they scratched the surface, and sometime in the winter, which they will touch on here shortly, during the winter term, we will provide a more in-depth look at some of these areas of preparing for postgraduate success from a personal financial standpoint. But to piggyback off of Alyssa's discussion on relocation, something else that you should always consider is the total compensation package. So your salary, yes, that's important. You want to know how much money you're making and if you can still maintain the same standard of living if you relocate. However, there are other things that go into that total compensation package that are also important. Whereas you may get a less salary, your salary may be a little lower, but you may get more vacation time, or your work schedule may be a little more flexible. So these are the components that go into the total compensation package that you should always consider. Those listed on the slide there are, of course, relocation package. Now, this is something that some organizations will offer, whereas others may not. And this could factor into your decision on whether or not to relocate. Also, the flexibility in your work schedule, whether or not there is a bonus paid, medical insurance, that could be big. Some areas or some organizations, they actually invest more resources into providing a great medical plan to their employees. So health insurance is always important, and you may see cost savings with one organization compared to another to offset maybe a lower salary. The last two there, retirement plan. There are different ways that organizations structure retirement plans to offer more of an incentive to potential employees. And then the last thing there that is extremely important is professional development. In your role, no matter where you secure a job, you always want to feel that you can continue to grow as a professional. And a lot of times your employer will invest resources and money into allowing you to grow. And that kind of goes along with mobility, being able to move up within an organization. So that's the total compensation package. So salary is a small portion, but there are many other areas that make up that total compensation. I mentioned that salary is big, and as Alyssa went through, relocating is big, but you also have to consider whether or not there is the opportunity to have a discussion with your potential employer to make more money. So say the job that you really want is paying significantly less than the job that the alternative or the other job opportunity that you have. Now, do you just say no based on money, or do you try and negotiate? So here are three questions that you must ask as it relates to your ability to negotiate. The first one there is, do you think you are worth more money? So you have two job offers on the table. One is significantly lower and lower than you would expect, but you have to ask yourself, do you just think that you're worth more money, or can you actually quantify through your experience or through your volunteer service or through some additional knowledge, skill, or ability that you have acquired over time? Can you quantify additional salary? And we're going to talk a little bit more about how to go about that process and how to make a case to an organization that you should get paid more money. And then the third thing there, kind of wrap the first two together, but the third part is, what value do you bring to an organization? So this is a big question, because if you're asking for more money, the organization, they may look at you as a potential employee and say, well, what are you bringing to the table for us? And this all goes to say that we have a career center here that can help you kind of answer some of these questions and allow you to better understand some of the skills that you have acquired through some of the internships or through some of your experiences on campus. And the Career Center, they actually helped out, and they provided a lot of these tools and resources that we will talk about in this presentation. But understanding whether or not you can negotiate, it starts with asking yourself these three questions. All right, so if you get a yes to that last one, to the last couple of questions, meaning you think you're worth more money and you can quantify, and also you have just a baseline understanding of what value you can bring to an organization, well, now it's time to think about how you should approach that negotiation. I like to say you perform what is called a market analysis. And when conducting a market analysis, you should always ask yourself, how much do others make in a similar role? So when you're trying to justify or think about a salary negotiation, you always want to have a good idea, or at least a general idea, of how much money someone would make in that similar role at another organization. So that's the first question. The second thing there is, how will the cost of living impact the offer? So again, you can't compare just the straight salary. As Alyssa showed us, you would need a significantly higher amount in salary to compensate for the cost of living if you were moving from Portland to San Diego, California. So this is kind of the start of the negotiation process. Now, how do you go about answering these questions as a part of the negotiation? I'll show you on our next slide here. So this is a market analysis. So if you have never done this before, it's as simple as this. So if you have a sheet of paper, take it out, or if you have a notepad, or if you have your cell phone, just pull that out. And I want you to visit a couple of these web pages or these websites that I have on this page here. So a market analysis, all you would simply do is write down organization or company that you're interested in working for. Write down the specific job title that you would look to obtain. Responsibilities, you can mark those down, but most importantly, you want to cover just the high level areas of those job responsibilities. Also write down the salary. Either the salary that they're offering or the salary that you think you should get. The next thing there is you want to adjust that salary for the cost of living. Now, this is only when you're doing a comparison. As Alyssa showed us with the Nerd Wallet website, you can compare the salary in one place to another to see how it would equate. In other words, how much would I need to make in a different location in order to obtain that same standard of living? And then the last thing there, of course, you want to write down the location. That will also kind of tell you in that area, this is how much money I should make. Now, on the right there, that is where I have the resources where you can answer this information. So in this example, organization is Columbia Sportswear. Job title is a market analyst. But if I want to look at a market analyst position for Columbia Sportswear, one website, now it doesn't have every job out there, but a starting point for looking at what an average salary is visiting www.glassdoor.com. Once you get to glassdoor.com, you would just plug in the company, and then you may have to create an account, and then you start searching, and you can find different job titles at different organizations, and it will show you how much money they make. Another good website you can go to is www.payscale.com. I didn't list that up there, I'm sorry, but that is another great website that you can use. And the next thing there is finding out the salary, same as Glassdoor, same as PayScale. So once you find that position within that organization and the salary, then you have the information that you need to kind of start that comparison. And then as far as the adjusting for the cost of living, Alyssa showed us nerdwallet.com. Another great website, which I have used in the past, is bankrate.com. Unfortunately, Bankrate has been down over the past couple of weeks. However, when it's up and running, as with anything else, it is a fantastic website. It really goes into a lot of detail as far as how much items would cost when comparing one location to another. I mean, they tell you how much the price of a tennis ball is in a location, and they compare that. They give you the average price of rent. They'll tell you how much a hamburger is, how much laundry is if you were to go and get it done. So they really go into a lot of detail, and it's extremely important when you're comparing the cost of living from one place to another. So to sum this slide up, if you have never done a market analysis before, to compare the salary in one location for a specific job to another, utilize this slide here, or just take out a sheet of paper or in your notes section and write down these key areas: the company, the position title, the salary, and then you can adjust that for the cost of living from one place to another. It wouldn't be a fair, a fair demonstration of how some of these tools and resources work without mentioning the impact that COVID-19 has had on just the overall job market. Now, I'm not from career services, but what we're touching on are the impact financially that the job search can have, or what you need to understand as you look for jobs and how to make a fair comparison. But just a few things, a few highlights I wanted to cover just real quick that kind of give you an idea of the impact of COVID-19. Now, I've talked about salary negotiation, where you start, what information you need, and kind of how to tell a story of your justification for more money. However, we are living through this pandemic time when it's much more difficult to negotiate. So I'm not saying it's impossible, but I'm saying you may need to practice a little more. You may need to do this prior research that we have discussed during this presentation to show you why, or to help you justify why a salary increase is a part of your plan to negotiate. So that's one impact COVID has had. And that also speaks to the importance of reaching out to the Career Center and better understanding how to communicate your skills. The second thing there, compensation packages have been impacted. So whereas an organization before, they may offer, a decent or pretty good compensation package, that compensation package is not the same due to COVID. Now, you've had a lot of employers and organizations who have kind of had to reconfigure their operation. They're doing more remote, which as a result, you now have to compete with a pool of remote candidates, and that increases the competition. So if there's more competition, more individuals that they can hire from a remote standpoint, if they have this one employee who's pretty good, they may not negotiate. They may not be willing to give. So these are things to consider. Last but not least there, this entire presentation on planning financially for post-grad is to kind of give you an idea of what areas you should work to better understand before graduation. So budgeting, credit building, understanding the relocation, and also understanding how to plan for retirement, or just the importance of starting as soon as possible. So these are all areas that are extremely important. And if you establish just a baseline understanding of these areas, then you are in such a better position once you graduate. And we like to refer to it as you're ready to hit the ground running. So create that first budget, pull a copy of your credit report, just see what's showing up on there, and get an idea of how much you owe in student loans. And before you graduate or during winter term, schedule a meeting with a peer financial coach. We can walk you through these areas and hopefully give you a better understanding of how impactful these areas are and will be in the future. And just to piggyback off of my last slide here, the resources that are available here on campus, I mentioned the importance of being able to communicate your skills, your knowledge, your abilities, everything that you have acquired over time. Visit with the Career Center. They have career readiness coaches who are available to meet with you all. You can reach out to advisors, professors, supervisors, just ask questions. That's the big thing. And also, don't forget about us here. Financial Wellness Team, we have a team of strong coaches who can meet and discuss a number of these areas and work with you in many ways.
Yeah, thanks y'all again so much for coming. We just want you to make sure that you're keeping an eye out for winter term. Like Gilbert mentioned, we, as well as the Career Center, we also have a lot of resources that we'd love for you to utilize. So we're also going to be going a lot deeper into some of these specific topics in winter term. So we're thinking about having an entire workshop just like this one, specifically dedicated to, discovering those relocation costs.
Come back in for 1 second. I saw a question over wanting to learn a little more about the relocation cost itself. So you have a number of things to consider as it relates to relocation. You have moving your items from one place to another. You have you have the cost of getting an apartment, whether you have to put down any sort of fees or cut on electricity, utilities, etc. And a lot of times employers, depending on the organization, they will pay for your travel costs back and forth. They may cover a plane ride back and forth. They may just cover gas, or they may cover anything from a hotel stay for a couple of days once you move to a new location. So those are the things that kind of go into that relocation. They will cover meals sometimes. So it really just depends on the organization. Put together these relocation packages. They will give you what rules and what policies are in place that qualify for compensation or reimbursement under the relocation package. So just wanted to cover that real quick. So it's everything from food to travel to transportation to housing to maybe temporarily staying somewhere. So that is what's meant by the relocation cost.
Yeah, we had another question though, Gilbert. Can you negotiate after accepting your offer?
Once you sign, it's over. So if it's a verbal acceptance, you verbally accepted an offer, what I would do is if you feel strongly, because you've already said yeah, and one thing is you don't want the employer to look at you as if you're kind of on the fence or if you're back and forth. So what I would do is if you feel as if you deserve more money, reach out to the person you have become closest to in that organization. It's likely the HR person, or it's likely the recruiter, or whoever you have had these discussions with. Uh, do all of your research, get your plan together, do your market analysis, and then you really have to spend time justifying the kind of the ask for more money if you're looking at negotiating. But I would start with that person and just explain your situation, be as upfront as possible, and that is likely to get you somewhere. And there's no guarantee. I mean, I've always been told that the worst thing they can possibly tell you is no, and that's not going to be the first or last time that you hear that. So approach it with that mindset.
Thanks, Gilbert. So just going off of everything that we've learned today, if you want to learn more and you want to get some one-on-one time with our peer financial coaching, please visit our website, set up an appointment with a one-on-one advisor. We can talk about all the things that we talked about today, but we can also talk about so much more and really get specific about what you're going through and what you really want to learn about.
Yes, as Megan mentioned, please come visit us and the 19 other coaches. We are really excited about this and want to share it with you all. So over the break, while we're not as accessible during the winter break, please stay connected on our webpage. Please follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. We constantly post information and updates about our program there. Also, feel free to subscribe to UL Financial Wellness for quick intros and to these topics, and we just go